happened just a few months ago. I used to love Frosted Flakes for the longest time, but something happened to me recently that has left me traumatized. It happened on a Saturday night. I remember eating a bowl of Frosted Flakes right before going to bed. My dad had gone to work the night shift, so I was home with my mom. It was late, so we were both sleeping in our rooms. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up and couldn't fall back asleep for a while. Eventually, I almost managed to, but then I was hit with sleep paralysis. I couldn't breathe. I struggled to even open my eyes. When I could finally see, there was a vision of an angry, demented Tony the Tiger hovering over me. Chills of fear shot through me. For a second, I thought he was about to eat me alive, but I finally broke free from the sleep paralysis, took a deep breath and rubbed my eyes. The vision of Tony the Tiger disappeared, but it only revealed something even more horrifying. There was a total stranger standing in the corner of my room. There was a tall, skinny man swaying back and forth, just staring at me. I rubbed my eyes again, but he didn't go away. Once I realized he was actually in my room, I freaked the hell out. I screamed and shouted at him while I threw anything I could grab at him.
Who the hell are you? Get out of my house!
I was cold outside. Do you think you could warm me up? How about I crawl under the covers with you and cuddle skin to skin?
Stay away from me, you pervert! Mom! Somebody's in my room!
Shut your mouth before I clog it with my third leg, bitch!
Suddenly, the man lunged on top of me and started strangling me. I dug my nails into his wrist and began kicking and screaming at the psycho. I was then able to kick the man off my bed. I seized the opportunity to arm myself with the lampshade from my nightstand. That's when I saw the man get up and walk out of my room. I heard him going down the stairs, so I ran across the hall to my mom's room. Somehow, she hadn't been woken up by my screaming, so I made sure she got the hell out of bed and helped me with the man who broke into our house. She told me to call my dad and tell him to come home immediately while she called the police. Once I got off the phone with my dad, my mom started walking out of the room. I followed her into the hallway to the top of the stairs. We peeked down into the kitchen and saw the man doing the strangest thing. He was sitting at the table, just eating a bowl of Frosted Flakes. My purse was sitting right next to the box, but he wasn't interested in it. My mom went halfway down the steps and started screaming at the man.
Get out of my house! The cops are coming! You hear me?
The man said nothing. He just kept eating the bowl of Frosted Flakes. My mom and I were stunned. A minute ago, this guy was trying to strangle me to death, and now he's acting like he lives with us and we're nagging him over a bowl of cereal. We watched him from the stairs, waiting to see what he would do when he was done. He ate every last Frosted Flake, guzzled down the leftover milk, stood up with the bowl in his hand. Then without warning, he screamed at the top of his lungs and smashed the bowl on the floor. The broken shards went everywhere. Just when I thought he was about to run up the stairs and gut us both with a piece of broken glass, he ran away. He bolted out the back door and we never saw him again. I was at a complete loss. Several minutes later, the cops finally showed up, followed by my dad. We reported everything that happened to him. It didn't take long for the cops to find him. Somebody else called the cops on him just a few hours later. He was at an adult video store causing a bunch of trouble in one of the aisles. The owner of the store had security footage of him trashing one of the displays, then taking one of the videos into the viewing booth and passing out. That's where the cops found him, with his pants off. To this day, I'll never understand that man's motives. Apparently, he was drunk and under the influence of a few different things, which explains why he was so unpredictable. I don't know why he chose to break into our house though. He didn't steal anything except for the bowl of Frosted Flakes and my ID, which was in my purse. I guess he thought it was a good picture. Unfortunately, now I have to live with the trauma of almost being strangled to death in my own bed. And of all things, my biggest trigger is a box of Frosted Flakes. I can't even go into the cereal aisle at the grocery store anymore. Frosted Flakes used to be my favorite cereal, but now I can't even eat it anymore. Tony the Tiger reminds me too much of that psychotic freak. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a bizarre burglary. Police were called to the home of two women in response to a burglary report around 3:20 a.m. One of the women told police that she woke to find a man eating food in her bedroom. The woman described the man as a tall, thin white male with short cropped hair. and wearing a gray shirt. He was later identified as Gerald Conger. The woman told police that Conger said, "Hi," and then walked out of her bedroom. Police say the woman woke up her mother, who went into the kitchen to find Conger eating their Frosted Flakes cereal. She told Conger to get out of her house, which he did. Police say the woman called her husband, and once he arrived home, she called the police. The woman told the police the TV was sitting on the floor and had been disconnected, and the only thing Conger took was her ID card from her wallet that was sitting on the table. When police asked the woman how Conger got into her house, she said they do not lock the front door. Police were later approached by a clerk at an adult entertainment store nearby. The clerk told police that he had to kick out a man around 3:30 a.m. because he was drunk and passed out in one of the viewing booths. The clerk said the man forgot his wallet and described the man exactly the same way the women did. Police believe Conger was under the influence of narcotics and alcohol at the time of the incidents. The investigation was stated as ongoing.
I've been living at my grandmother's house for most of my life. My parents have been gone since I was just a few years old, so she took care of me for about as long as I can remember. I'm not the only one who lives with her though. My uncle has been mooching off her for longer than I've been alive. He's the creepiest weirdo I've ever seen. He doesn't work or pay rent or clean up after himself. All he does is spend my grandma's social security checks and take 80% of the money for himself. He's the definition of a parasite. What makes him even more disturbing to live with is his obsession with being a furry. It's more than a few trips a year to conventions and wearing a costume for photos. He wears a fursuit more often than he wears regular clothes. He spends thousands of dollars on multiple costumes. The scariest one he owns is this cursed version of Tony the Tiger, and he knows it freaks me out. It's his favorite one to wear around the house just to give me nightmares. As if one creep in a furry animal costume wasn't bad enough, my uncle actually managed to make friends. Every weekend, the same 4 guys come over dressed in their own fursuits and hang out around the house. I've never seen any of their faces because they never take off the suits. When they're not hogging the TV, the 5 of them go into my uncle's bedroom and lock the door. Then, for the next few hours, they pretend to be animals. They always make the loudest noises, too. I can never have friends over on Saturdays because I don't want to explain why there's barking and meowing and howling coming from the hallway. Years ago, my grandma used to be able to keep those lunatics in check. Unfortunately, she was diagnosed with dementia. So ever since I was in middle school, I've had to fend for myself as my uncle had gradually taken over the house. Since my grandma spends most of her time in bed, there's nobody stopping my uncle from doing whatever he wants. Once he realized that, he started forcing me to put on a Tony the Tiger fursuit and join in on his cultish little furry meetings. I tried to refuse, but he threatened to stop buying food for me. I had no other choice. Now my plans for Saturday are always the same. Put on a Tony the Tiger fursuit and spend 6 hours in my uncle's bedroom, crawling around on my hands and knees, pretending to be a dog with 5 fully grown men. I get bossed around by Tony the Tiger, who's the only one of us that's allowed to talk. If I ever do anything other than bark, howl, growl, or whimper, I get surrounded by the other 4 and they act like they're going to rip me to shreds. Knowing that all 5 of them are more than twice my age makes it even worse. My biggest bullies are 40-year-old men who treat me like the weakest dog in the pack. There's never any break from it, and every time we do it, my uncle gets even more unhinged. I think he's actually starting to believe that he's Tony the Tiger. I swear it's causing me psychological trauma. It's the most degrading thing I can imagine having to be put through. Well, it's not the absolute worst thing ever. One night, something even more horrific started happening. It was a Saturday. After 6 hours of pretending to be a dog, I was tossing and turning, trying to remember what it was like to be me. I couldn't get to sleep. Eventually, it was 3 in the morning, and that's when the nightmare started. Except, I was never able to wake up from it.
What are you doing here? It's 3 in the morning.
It's time for you to come to our meeting.
But the meeting is over. I did everything you wanted me to. Just leave me alone.
This is different. It's a special, secret meeting. Now, put on your fur.
No, I don't care about your stupid meeting.
They're not stupid.
They're great. just get out of my room.
Tony the Tiger would hate it if you didn't come with us.
You're not Tony the Tiger. You're just a creep. Let me see those stretch marks, bitch. They remind me of tiger stripes. Grab his arms. Hold him down. No, stop it. He's not just good. He's great.
From the night the torture started, it happened again and again, every single Saturday, sometimes the entire weekend. My uncle's friends would force me into the same Tony the Tiger furry costume and torture the hell out of me. It went on for years. My uncle threatened to make things even worse for me if I ever told anyone. Out of fear of being chained up in his room for the rest of my life, I kept quiet. It took me until very recently to finally work up the courage to call the cops. Finally, it was over. My uncle and all his sick, demented friends got arrested. I hope they get what's coming to them in prison, but it will never be enough. The agony might have ended, but the pain is still here. I'm receiving therapy in foster care, but I can tell even my therapist has never seen anything like this before. This story was inspired by one of the most horrific incidents regarding a male who alleged that he was repeatedly tormented by a group of furries who made him dress in a Tony the Tiger outfit. What made all this the more disturbing was how the victim was reportedly related to one of the men and had lived with his grandmother when the tormenting started. The man who the victim was allegedly related to and was responsible for orchestrating the furry parties was a man named Kenneth Fensk. I think that's how you pronounce that, but I refuse to look up and correct myself for the sake of a furry. Police have arrested 5 people who say they were involved in the horrific furry parties when investigators lured one of the men using their online decoys. That's when police were then able to arrest and charge all suspects accordingly. As for the victim, he is now in foster care and has been receiving therapy. I recently moved out of my parents' house and got a place closer to where I work. The catch is I'm living in the worst part of town. It was the only area I could afford, and I thought I could handle it since I was used to working in the same environment. Unfortunately, it backfired on me, and now I never get a break from it. Things are always sketchy enough during the day, but at night, the streets are always crawling with hobos, dealers, gangsters, and prostitutes. I'm frequently woken up to the sound of drive-bys, police sirens, and crazy psychos fighting and screaming at the top of their lungs. I was just starting to get used to it. But then the other night, something so insane happened that everything else seemed normal. The first sign of something unusual was the growling. I noticed it when I got in bed. It's pretty common for the strung-out freaks on the street to make weird noises when they're having one of their fits, but this didn't sound the same. I honestly couldn't tell if it was a person or an animal that was growling. Then I heard a hissing sound along with it, like a dog and a bunch of stray cats were about to get into a brawl. What concerned me the most was how close to the house it sounded. Normally I don't stick my nose into anything that happens in my neighborhood unless it's happening on my doorstep. This was different though. Not only could I hear it, but after a few minutes, I could smell it too. It was the distinct odor of spray paint. I realized what might be happening to my house, so I got up to look out my bedroom window. When I opened the blinds, I was greeted by blood-red paint all over my window. I took my phone and ran to the front door, where I heard more growling and hissing. I then looked through the window and saw a man dressed as Tony the Tiger vandalizing my front porch with spray paint. Everything from the railing to the chairs were covered in ugly strips of red. I was furious. I opened the door and started screaming at the man.
Get the hell off my property or I'll call the cops! I'm not done yet. Your house is a flake, and it needs to be frosted. All right, you asked for it. Hello, police? There's an insane man spray painting my...
Out of nowhere, that psycho ran up and spray painted straight into my eyes. Everything turned black and red as I choked on paint. Every breath I managed to take was laced with toxic fumes. While I was trying to recover, the man finished the job and quickly covered me from head to toe in paint. Then went back to spraying every surface of my front porch. After a few agonizing minutes, I could breathe again. but I still couldn't see. Without a second thought, I blindly charged at a freak and tackled him into the front lawn. I gave everything I had, every ounce of strength and every dirty trick in the book, trying to get the upper hand. I wanted to beat the guy into the sidewalk so the cops would have to peel him off the pavement. But while blind and still wheezing, I couldn't win out against the guy's almost inhuman strength. I thought he had looked like a scrawny wimp, but I failed to account for the crazed look in his eye. A couple minutes into the fight, and I was losing. He managed to pin me down and started strangling the life out of me. I was exhausted and blind and had a lung full of paint, but that freak had unlimited energy and strength. I was convinced I was about to die, and at the hands of a weirdo dressed like Tony the Tiger. Thankfully, a moment after I accepted my fate, he was ripped off of me by a pair of police officers who threw him to the ground and arrested him. I couldn't see much, but I could hear his screams as they took him away.
Ah! Let go of me or I'll use your wife's milk for my frosted flakes!
After he was gone, an ambulance came by and took me to the hospital, where I was able to recover, but not completely. The doctor said my lungs should fully heal, but a few weeks later, I'm still dealing with a nasty cough. My eyes, on the other hand, will never be the same again. I'm not blind, but after having 20/20 vision all my life, the difference in my vision is depressing. Everything is blurry now, and I can't focus my eyes as well. Even then, I can still see the reminders of what happened every single day. My house is covered on all sides by a chaotic scramble of red paint. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and until my landlord paints over it, I'll never be able to forget. As for the guy who did it, he was identified, and it turns out he had gone on a spree of vandalism, all while dressed as Tony the Tiger. He was under the influence of some of my neighborhood's finest narcotics, and had deluded himself into believing he was the real Tony the Tiger on a mission to frost all the flakes in the world. At random, for no reason whatsoever, he saw my house as some kind of unfrosted flake. I just wish if he was going to attack me and spray paint my house that he would have done it in regular clothes. Because now I can't stand to see, hear, or think about Tony the Tiger without being overcome with panic, as if he's just gonna jump out and spray paint my face again. My therapist told me that sharing my story could help, but after telling it, I just want to throw up. This story was inspired by a bizarre incident regarding a man investigators say was spray painting a man's home and pillars, as well as a sidewalk and dumpster, while wearing a tiger suit. Denver police are calling him Tony the Tagger. On a Friday night, police got the call about a suspect later identified as a 29-year-old Timothy Heckler, wearing a Tony the Tiger costume while spray painting a home. Police say before that, Heckler had been spray painting pillars of that home and the sidewalk. When police arrived, they say they found Heckler still in his tiger costume spray painting a city dumpster. Heckler was arrested, and officers say they recovered several cans of spray paint on him.